Hey everyone, I'm Clive,
And I'm Louis.
and today we're going to be talking about building lean BIM requirements for owners. So let's get started. Our agenda will be 3 items. The first one about a bit of a story where we introduce 2 different guys and they have completely different experiences when they're working with their owners in BIM meetings.
Yeah, we'll go through 10 things that are unsuccessful during BIM meetings. So we'll walk you through
10 things that wreck
some
BIM
10
meetings.
examples of that. And then we'll actually show you how to run a badass BIM meeting.
A badass BIM meeting. Badass.
Let's do it.
Cool. So the first one is to introduce 2 very different BIM meetings. Let's take a look at a couple of BIM meetings. So last week, apparently, Frank and Ted had BIM meetings with their clients. So they were sitting with their owners and having a meeting with them. And they both used the same agenda.
Yeah, both agendas were pretty good. They were,
Look really
determined
detailed.
to find the BIM uses, determine a lot of the information that's required, agree on what teams should be involved. So many,
What the milestones are, what the
Yeah.
geometry, the documentation, the information.
many topics to
Seems
go through, but
pretty
seems
detailed.
like it's well covered.
Yeah. Okay. So let's meet Frank.
Yeah, let's see how Frank meeting went.
Oh, he doesn't look so pleased.
Yeah, he looks overwhelmed maybe.
So what do you think was the response from his client?
Well, let's take a look.
So Frank's client, they don't look so engaged, and maybe he lost them, partway through this meeting.
Looks like a lot of my meetings in the past.
Yes, I can identify with that as well. Frank's
I've been on
meeting,
either
maybe
side, by the way.
been on both sides of that. Yeah,
both.
it's a learning experience
Yeah.
both ways.
I'm sure we have all had that.
And so, should we see how Ted got on?
Let's see how Ted's went. Whoa, this is Ted. Looks like his has been.
His went
a little-
okay. Yeah, it
little
looks
bit
like it
more-
went okay. So Ted's client, they're
They seem
they're
pretty
applauding,
happy.
they're pleased.
He's
Yeah.
pretty happy. His clients
See
are pretty
breakdancing on the
happy.
table.
Yeah.
Okay, so
All right.
Ted's meeting was pretty different to Frank's meeting. So what could have been the cause for those differences?
Well, yeah. Let's take a look. There's many of the what could have caused Frank's to go bad.
Okay.
So let's take a look at those. So 10 things that may have wrecked Frank's BIM meeting.
Let's take a look. So the first one is that BIM is not usually the day job of the owner, of the person that you're speaking with.
It's one of the first things we need to realize too, as someone who speaks BIM language all day and is looking up and reading, and an owner's day job is not that. So when we have meetings with even owners or other team members, we need to realize that they might not understand
They have different priorities.
the potential. Yeah.
Yep. And so one really important thing is not to get too technical. So this might be Frank in his meeting, where he shares, I haven't had time to summarize my 5 years of BIM research, so I just want to go through all the raw data.
Yeah, and sometimes you feel compelled to show data and show all this information of what we could do, but really it goes in one ear, out the other, the more technical you get, because now you're beginning to use language that is unfamiliar.
There you go.
And that's where
BIM jargon. Yep.
all the BIM jargon starts to come in, right? You start using abbreviations. Oh, this means that. This is that. Don't worry, it's all set. I'll give you an index of all this later. But come on, really, are we all going to learn this? Are we all going to go back and reference this information?
Is an owner going to understand what a BXP and a BIM spec and NPS and LOD and FM and COBE, and are they really bothered about that?
Let's keep it simple.
So less jargon.
Mm-hmm.
What else might have happened? Did he bring the right people involved? Did he invite the right people?
Maybe.
Did the owner know which people they should bring?
Maybe not, but it's definitely important to involve the right people. Being able to agree and commit to certain milestones or information that we'll be providing on a project, we need to have everyone's input to see if that would be something that we can promise and
it's
not
everyone.
overcommit.
It's not just the digital disruptors, the BIM nerds. It's also those project managers and teams that are really in the day-to-day of the project. Everyone is affected.
Yeah.
Everyone is affected. And there's really emphasis on getting the right people in the room should be very, very important to everyone so that you don't waste people's time. And then we've seen, so Frank might have started his meeting with a set of project documents that maybe have been copied and pasted from a previous project.
That might just be confusing because my project might not have required a lot of that information that you brought in from another previous project. So why, as an owner, would I be seeing these things in there? So that
it can be erroneous
Yeah.
data. It can be more work because you have to clean up. It can feel like a lean way of working, as in it is quick to create,
Well-
but the results we have seen be drastic and very, very painful when things can go pretty wrong.
We've been there.
Absolutely. That's personal experience.
It's because I've been asked to create a document or BIM execution plan.
Can I have it yesterday?
Yeah, that was due yesterday. So hence the square
peg in a round hole doesn't work. Trying to repurpose something is very difficult. So the sixth one, Frank might have just been selling the BIM dream and saying to the owner how they're going to save so much money and how this is going to be perfect workflow and it's going to be seamless and instant bottom line return.
Yeah, and it's really good to sell this kind of stuff, but sometimes you have to be more specific in terms of what is actually necessary for the project.
And when you oversell it, the owner tends to think that
if you're a really good salesman,
it's easy. There's just, BIM is easy. It's an easy button.
Well, we've all known, well, you've already done this in 3D. Can't we just click a button and get this and that from it?
Yeah, I only want to change this, and then all of the drawings update and everything is automatic. So therefore, it's not.
Yeah.
It's hardly any change.
My dad always tells me, "Wouldn't you do this a lot faster?" I'm like, it's not that easy, pal.
And so when people do think it's easy, then they tend to ask for everything. And especially when there's been a huge promise of return and a great opportunity for savings and in time and cost. And then, well, it would make sense, surely, to ask for everything. But that's the crime of the century.
Right.
Please be very precise in what you are solving for and what the customer really needs.
Always be mindful of the time it takes to accomplish all of those BIM uses, or what the budget might take as well. So being very clear with that with the owner is a good step.
Absolutely. And sometimes when the owner has had an over-inflated expectation and maybe not had that delivery in the way that he would expect, she would expect, they can be traumatized by previous experiences.
It might not just be the client either. It's just the other team members involved as well that might be in that meeting. So we've all experienced that, traumatized, but keep moving.
BIM trauma. And then that set of occurrences where they might have had bad experience, they might just settle for the traditional delivery process. And we know that doesn't account for the resources and the time and the money that might be required up front to be able to get the benefit. So some of those could have been the reasons why Frank had a little bit of a difficulty, and all of those 10 different reasons lead to poor requirement scoping and also overpromising so that you can impress the owner, because everyone wants the owner to be impressed and you would like repeat work. But it really needs to be on decent grounds, and lean BIM requirements, if we can get there, would really help, really solve a lot of those challenges. So how do we get there, Louis? How do we run a badass BIM meeting? Should we take a look?
Yeah, let's.
So this is how Ted might have done it, yeah?
Yeah, so, there's Ted. So Ted does look like he had some success. Let's take a look at what he may have done during his presentation or
hopefully
meeting.
Not break danced on the table.
Maybe they were just clapping because he's a good dancer. Who knows?
So Ted needed to understand, or Ted did understand, because his meeting went so well, that BIM is not part of a day job for the owner of the owner's day job. And so instead of expecting them to understand what BIM is and how it can benefit them, he provided really clear, rich examples. For example, coordination.
Yeah, he could have brought some coordination examples showing them what it takes, what processes would require. Maybe it's
what the benefits are to them.
Yeah, manpower, time, money, whatever it is. But showing examples of what that might actually take,
as far as
you're on the same page.
Yep, what the scope would be and what the output would be. And then 4D phase planning, showing the owner an example from a previous project. Again, seeing the amount of effort from the scoping and seeing the output is really powerful.
Showing them all the benefits of that as well. There's a lot of safety now for phase planning.
Sequencing and safety. And then quantities, how more accurate quantities might benefit the owner indirectly or directly. Understanding that, being able to tighten the risk and being able to be more sure on the outcomes is very important.
These examples are more for helping them understand what it takes and giving them a little bit of education, not just saying, oh, we could do it all, we can do this, we can do that, but kind of getting into a little bit of the details of what it actually takes to accomplish these BIM uses, and allow them to understand that, and it'll make them have a better decision.
And then a couple that might be more applicable for the owner, being able to virtually walk through their building using different examples and taking that hardware to the meeting so that they can actually experience it has been very powerful and very well received. But understanding what the commitment is, what the scope is required in order to get to that photorealistic.
Yeah, this is a really good example, and because as an owner who does not know too much information about BIM and what it might take, they might think that you're doing coordination and would say, well, then let's do AR, VR, or one of these, and they'll jump into the headset and just go, hey, well, why is all the piping magenta? Why is the duct blue? Like, that's not realistic.
Is it really going to be blue in my building?
And that right there is not aligning those expectations. They thought, okay, well, you're already doing it in 3D. Why don't you just slap some material? That we all know that that's not realistic expectations as someone who knows what it takes.
So understanding the finishes and being able to put time in for those.
It's not their everyday job. So again, that's just another example of how connections.
Yep. And then one of the very key ones is required for handover at the end of that workflow.
And the person you might be talking to in that meeting, who's speaking on behalf of the client, may not be the person that
runs and manages the building office,
manages the facilities. So, having the right person, again, inside that meeting, bringing in the facilities manager or director, having them come in and say, this is the equipment I need, and this is the information that it takes.
Yep. So Ted also understands that he can be too technical. So one of the ways that he is able to really remain out of the weeds and not into those detailed technical explanations about, let's not start on those, is by using pictures. And a picture, we all know, is 1,000 words. So if Ted can build up that agreement using thousands of pictures, how powerful would that be? And we know firsthand how owners absolutely love being able to truly understand what they're going to get in this way. So visually scoping the project, really, really beneficial when you're sitting down with an owner.
Yeah, it really helps actually look at those and build it, because going through and looking at an Excel spreadsheet or a long list of a Word document, we all know that we're going to zip right through it and say, yep, read it, agreed, let's go.
That was why Frank's guys were laying asleep on the...
He was reading every line item.
showing an Excel spreadsheet with a bunch of numbers. Ted also understands that templates can save a lot of time and reduce risk. So rather than copying and pasting a whole bunch of things that he might not need, he can use templates and be selective.
Yeah, and we speak with a lot of people who are developing those templates because they understand that every project is unique, and bringing in that risk is not really great, not only for the client but for their own company and liability things that might come up. So these templates, keeping them basic. If you are someone who is developing those templates, think about the non-project specific items, leaving yourself, little red highlights or something that you can come right in and fill in that project information once you've received it. So a lot of that kind of workflow that you put into your templates that you're building alone or with your team could really go a long way.
Yep. Ted also understands that each BIM use can have completely different requirements.
Right.
And so he sees the ability to define information delivery milestones and vary what is required on each milestone.
Yep.
Pretty simple, using that visual
not asking
nature.
for everything, not asking for the entire scope in the design review phase, only asking for certain information in the estimates, and then focusing on the actual coordination elements that will be needed, and along the way, scaling that level of information or level of geometry as it's needed, and not something that's just forced right at the first milestone.
Yep, deciding when and which milestone is required. Ted also understands that aligning expectations is everything. So what is important to the owner? I think Louis just mentioned that as well. In a milestone for delivery, we really want to understand which elements out of the set that we are creating for the project anyway does the owner want, and also what might be required that is not part of the existing scope for project teams.
And this is something we've heard a lot of feedback from our customers and users who are coming back to us and saying that they are now able to make and build a more collaborative scope between the owner because they get them engaged, because they invite them to help create this.
Because they can understand it.
They understand it. They're not getting it lost in the definitions of this LOD or what's required for like they are just keeping it down to the basics.
Yep.
But doing it together, not something that's saying this is what I propose or what do you think you should give me a scope. Why don't we sit down, agree on the use.
It takes 45 minutes in a meeting room, and you see the difference between, yes, okay, Frank and Ted, but we have real life people that are also going through this process, and we just a couple of quotes at the end as well. So the principle is really interesting to be able to define this visually, but Ted also understands that it needs to be lean. So lean information requirements and lean workflows can save the owner time and also please the owner enough so that they would want to work with you again. And being able to define project-specific information requirements is part of this. Having a library of all of the information requirements that you might use across all of your projects, but also being able to, for a specific project, just add the ones that you need. Louis and I have personal experience on this where working as an owner, just literally only needing 17 different parameters, different information data types, that was all that was needed for the set of projects. So you didn't need a raft of thousands of information requirements.
Yeah, we originally had a meeting with the facilities owner, the client, and everyone who was involved, and we agreed that 17 parameters were needed and only for certain equipment. So
Not it wasn't 17 on everything either.
Not on everything.
Very targeted.
So we had a clear list of what was needed, and a clear list of what information was required and by when. So that really helped my team model and provide this information in a timely manner.
Make it, Ted, understanding also that he needed targeted information, became much more achievable. So in that example where we picked 17 different parameters, we're then targeting the assignment to only specific elements that are requiring certain, whether it's an asset for handover or it's an intermediate delivery between team members because somebody needs some type of information. So targeted information requirements rather than broad brush, I need information on everything, is a big time saver, a big way of leaning up the scope. Ted understands quite a lot, doesn't he? Ted also understands.
That is amazing. Where is he?
The agreements must be printed in a contract as well. So being able to instantly, in the meeting that you're in, be able to click print and say, this is my handover documentation and this is what we have agreed to. These are all of the information requirements that we have agreed to. And it's in a nicely printed and formatted, rapidly created report. And then finally,
collaboration.
Ted understands that we need to be able to achieve BIM compliance. And in order to do that, we need to bring everyone along from day one and include those teams in the collaborative environment so that they can agree to, they can help craft, and then we can track and manage and then verify. And if you were on earlier, you will have seen the verify, pretty excited about that, and being able to track what has been verified and visually before you publish a model for use. A very, very important step in the workflow.
Yeah, there's I don't know how much I can emphasize this more, but if you've been in a meeting and it could have been 1 hour, 2 hours, and you've gone through all this work, and to not share this information, it just seems like what a waste of time that you had with that client. So really engaging and making sure that the people who are actually doing the work do have access to this information, whether it's a PDF or access to a collaborative platform. It's really important to make sure that the person who's modeling, whether it's an intern, a junior designer, someone who's actually doing that work, has their hands,
the assignments,
on the document, on that information.
Imagine not leaving that meeting with a whole bunch of to-dos and a whole load of tasks and a whole bunch of formatting, reporting, and everything else, and telling the client, I'll get back to you. Imagine being able to, at that meeting, deliver a cohesive agreement based on exactly that 45-minute conversation that you've just had.
Yeah.
The power and the benefit in relationship building that can have. That is why Ted was able to run a badass meeting.
Badass meeting.
Big badass BIM meeting. So a couple of really nice quotes in here. Real life, not Ted, not Frank. Here, Cindy sharing that.
Cindy, if you're watching, hi.
Hi. It's like I feel like I work at Disneyland when I show off Planoly. It's so simple and visual. That's really cool. And we really believe in making it so much easier and more visual, more simple. So we really appreciate comments like that. And then Planoly makes our conversations easier. It makes buy-in easier. It's a great basis of conversation and agreement. So there's real understanding that this conversation between a delivery team and an owner can be facilitated much more in a more communicative way, and a visual way, and a way that people can understand, truly understand and agree to. So it's really exciting. You can probably tell that we get pretty excited about that. So in conclusion,
technical BIM jargon helps nobody.
Absolutely.
So, don't get too technical.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Don't throw in abbreviations. Make sure if the client or whoever's in that room, make sure that they understand before you get too technical. Make sure that or you're aware of their level of BIM education or whatnot. So
their savviness, but
yeah,
we don't need to force people to read a dictionary in order to be able to understand. We communicate, and we have done on projects around the world for so long using technical jargon in some cases, but now the teams understand. Everyone understands what a scope is. Let's call it a scope. Let's make it tangible and understandable by all of those people. They can all understand it. And also, the drive of today's webinar has been make it lean. So make sure that you have a lean scope with lean information requirements that can produce jaw-dropping results that can actually be achieved and that will benefit the customer, and that output, the deliverable, when it's gone through that compliance loop, is ready for the customer to use and is going to provide them value. And we all would like to start running those badass BIM meetings. I would love to help. Our team would love to help. And if you would like to learn more about how Planoly can help you, then let us know. We are here and we would love to share more with you.